Welcome to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast, your destination for all things lacrosse. I'm your host, Kyle Devitt. Alongside me, Owen Hart, assistant at Westwood High.
Yep. Coming off, I mentioned it, brutal upper break, getting healthy. My age came up on the last podcast, and we had a joke about it. I need to share a quick story that made me feel old. First game of the Chowder Cup, kid, shoes bloody as all hell. He's got a blister pop or whatever. And I was like, oh, what's up, Kurt Schilling? And this kid no-sold the hell out of it. He had no idea who Kurt Schilling was. And I was like, what year were you born? And he was like, 07. And I was like, oh my God, I feel old. So if you feel old, I felt old there. So I just wanted that story really was like, what just happened? You don't know Kurt Schilling?
Yeah, I generally don't feel that old because I'm like pop culture obsessed.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of, we were talking about
movies,
about Sinners the other day. It was an awesome movie. Like, go check it out if you're of age, of course. It's rated R. It's very R. But I love talking about stuff like that, and I'm always in the zeitgeist. Like it's kind of my other quality. Because you know this. If you're a whole and Coach, who we'll introduce you in a second, you know this as well. If you make your whole life lacrosse, you'll go insane.
Yep.
You'll go insane.
100%.
It's a little too much. But let's talk about our guest. He is James Foote. He is the assistant coach at Flagler College.
Yep. 50-50. Yep. I know. You got to stay away from the FU, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough moniker there. Yeah, tough go. I wanted to have you on, and not just because I know exactly what it's like to be in your position as an assistant coach. I did that for the early part of my career in lacrosse. I was an assistant coach for 6 years before I became a head coach at Division III, but I was a D2 assistant for 2 years, and D2 is different. It's actually harder because you have clearinghouse and you got to go everywhere, man. You do not have local stuff to go to. You maybe have a couple games. Flagler is in Florida, so maybe you're playing those teams, but you're not in the Florida D2 conference.
That's correct. Yep.
You're in the Peach Belt. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's actually a really cool setup. So we're the only school in Florida that's not in the Sunshine State Conference, which is great because we get 6-7 awesome out of conference games every year. So we don't have to travel up until conference time starts in April. And then the PBC being only 4 teams, usually it's 1 or 2 road trips. You got to gut out at the end of the year, and then you're golden. So it's a pretty cool setup where we are, but we're in the PBC with Alabama Huntsville, Montevallo, who's also in Alabama, and then Lander up in South Carolina.
Right. And there's 2 pieces to that, right? There's the other side of it, the western side that you also play.
Yeah. So this year it's a little different. I'm not exactly sure how it went down, but last year the NCAA said, hey, any conference with 6 teams or more gets an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. We used to have 6 teams in the PBC, and now we have 4. Our mac's growing a little bit, but both conferences were like, hey, we got some pretty good teams. We want a shot at an AQ. And I guess the NCAA went along with it, said, all right, the champs from each conference can play each other, and that team will get an automatic berth in the tournament. So we're PBC champs, but, we didn't get an all-tournament team or a trophy or anything for winning last weekend against Lander. NCAA is kind of looking at this game coming up against Colorado Mesa as the conference championship for the sake of the AQ.
Yeah, let me ask you another question about Flagler. I think people don't really necessarily know much about this school. I said it to Owen when I walked in.
Until you told me you were doing this, I was like, oh, Flagler.
You're like, have you heard of that? And I was like, don't worry. They've only been around since 2021. So you're effectively a post-COVID program, which I think people, if you're not paying attention to D2, has become a thing. Where these, you got Maryville. I think Lewis was there right before the pandemic, right? Like these other schools that are in different parts of the country that have elevated their program to an NCAA status in Division II, and now they're players on the scene, right? Like every time I go to a tournament, it's not just, I usually just see, NE10 guys, great. SAC guys, great. I don't see the other guys. Now I see everyone. I'm seeing Youngstown. I'm like, where's that? I have to keep up with Division II because it actually is expanding. Whereas, you have kind of Well, except for the news that came out this week, which is that Limestone is finished. Unfortunately, the school is
Unreal.
closing. Very horrible news coming out of there. But there is still growth in D2, and I'm curious how you got involved with Flagler.
Yeah, that's a really funny question, or funny answer, I guess. I've got some roots in Florida. I came down here from Virginia, DC for high school, and then I left, went out to Colorado, came back, and then next thing you know, fast forward a handful of years, I'm working in Fargo, North Dakota, and I was brand new to town, and you know, I'd previously been an MCLA head coach, an assistant at Rollins College, and kind of all over the place. I hopped on the North Dakota State MCLA coaching staff, and that was February 2020. So we got 2 good games in there, and then then it shut down, right? And so I had just rescued a dog, threw my dog in my truck, and came down here to Florida to go camping with some friends and try to win back a girl. Kind of a multifaceted trip, but I just left for a week, and then I met Brian Duncan down here, and he was starting up the Flagler program, and somehow over the years we had never really crossed paths. You know, we were just in different adjacent circles, and we went out and watched a PLL game one night, just chatted, and we're like long lost brothers. And he said, "You want to stick around down here in Florida and hop on our staff? We're club right now, but we're going D2. We don't have a field, we don't have a locker room, we don't have anything. We have one office for one coach, but we'd love to have you." And I was like, "Yeah, man, sure, let's do it." And so we're here now. Later that fall, I went back up to Fargo, got my stuff out of my apartment, kind of moved down here full time, got the girl too. And so it's been a pretty magical ride.
Love it. I had a kid who was a senior now, he's a freshman, and came back from April break vacation in Florida. He was like, "I want to go play at Tampa. I'm in love with it." And just like the location, I'm sure you guys get a lot of local talent that come there. You mentioned you're a new program. What's kind of the breakdown of your roster? Is there a lot of local guys, or do you get the kids coming down from New England? They see how nice Florida is. If you look at their campus, oh my God, it looks beautiful. Yeah. I want to go there.
He was literally just on the website looking at the campus like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Is it a lot of local Florida talent? Do you get guys from all over? Just what's kind of the breakdown of your roster in terms of where guys are coming from?
Yeah, so we've got a fair amount of Florida guys, including, you know, 2 of our top players, and one of which we've really built the program around, Tyler Douglas, out of Jupiter down in South Florida. He came in kind of like I did. You know, there was nothing to believe in other than a dream, and he decided to come here after previously being committed to a Sunshine State school. The following year, we got Trace McDonald, who was out of St. Thomas Aquinas down in Fort Lauderdale. I think both of them may have been the you know, Mr. Lacrosse or whatever, you know, top high school player of the year in the state. And so a lot of those guys, we have you know, some local St. Augustine talent. There's a couple high schools here in town. Both are represented on our roster, but our head coach Brian Duncan and our defensive coordinator Tim King, they're Baltimore guys. And they both played at UMBC, and then both coached at Essex Community College. So we have a really deep pipeline to that Baltimore, you know, between JUCO and MIAA schools. You know, a lot of second line, you know, talent from MIAA schools. We're like, okay, you know, maybe I can go to a low end D1 or even a mid range or high end D1 and sit for 2-3 years, or let's go to the beach. And they chose the beach. And it's worked out pretty well. And these are, I mean, quality guys, right? And you've kind of seen how our program's kind of gone. And you know, they've played in the big games coming out of high school, and they're coming into college, and it's like, all right, second game of the year, Tampa, you know, buck up. You're a sophomore, and they have COVID years and redshirt years and you know, injury years. You're playing 25-year-olds, so you know, get out there and do it. Or whatever it may be, 23. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but you know, really cool to watch the growth of these guys who were, you know, coming down and believing, like I said, in a dream and finding success here.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people go to college for 7 years.
Don't just pepper. Yeah, they're called doctors.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Yeah, great reference.
Just trying to get it right out there. I was 24.
I'm not. There you go. Yeah, I wasn't trying to say Tampa was full of 25-year-olds.
No.
I hope that didn't come out wrong.
I graduated when I was 24. I had another year. and that's because I PG'd and transferred.
Still take it.
So like it happens. Like who is it? Christian Tomei. I wrote a story on him this year. He's the goalie at Belmont Abbey, and every comment under the story is like, "Is this kid 27? Like, how is he still playing?" He's a Florida kid, but he went to Ohio State, and then he went to Jacksonville, and then he didn't play at either one, and it was also in between COVID. So like he is older. Like he's an older dude patrolling the net, you know, like that's a real deal thing. Speaking of kind of COVID stuff, and I said you guys are a post-COVID team. Being a new team in 2021 is hard, right? Like you guys took a lot of lumps, and that kind of continued until you built yourself up to a point where, you know, now, and I've written this, so I'm fine repeating myself. Flagler is the best story in college lacrosse. It is, because this team was not winning anything for the first part of their existence. And now they're in a play-in game for the NCAA tournament. Like, that doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen just because of one player or two players. It's an entire change in philosophy, and you've been there for all of that, and it was probably really hard. I've coached at schools where, especially in college, where it was brutal. That is the worst. It's the worst feeling, because as a coach, and you know this too because you're a coach, people think that you feel bad after you lose, and it's you, and it's like you projecting yourself, and it's like, no, I feel bad because I feel like there had to be something else I could have done. And the reality is, like, you can't. Right? Like, you can only work with what you have, especially in college and in high school. In high school, they'll actually listen. In college, it's a little tougher, right? Like, what was that journey like for you, from being like, you know, not a great team to now, like, you're hanging with top teams Division II?
Yeah. You know, early on, like that first season, so we started fall 2021. So our 2022 was our first season. And, you know, we didn't even have a field in the ground all fall. Like, we were practicing at a middle school 10 miles down the street, like 8 to 10 o'clock at night, you know, being an MCLA player and former MCLA coach, I felt at home. I was like, yeah, man. And some of these guys who came in were like, man, this is kind of whack. I'm like, oh, grit, man. And, you know, that first season we went 0-10 before we got our first win. And at 0-4, you know, you're playing some of the top Sunshine State teams. We were like, okay, to be expected. We're a bunch of freshmen. We're playing these guys that are, you know, studs, and like, as long as we put out a good effort. And we got that win, went 1-10, and then, you know, kind of improved from there, went into the PBC tournament. I mean, it was hard. And honestly, like 5 games into this whole thing, you know, I remember Coach Duncan be like, I don't know if I'm going to keep my job. I'm like, you're crazy, man. Like, you're killing this. We're competing with some really top teams here, with 18-year-olds. And, you know, we just got to, like, gut it out. You know, kind of the transition from 2022 to 2025, like, it has been really special, and it's been really crazy. But, you know, not every team's, you know, led by Brian Duncan. And I'm telling you, if you don't know him, this guy, like, you want to talk about a coach you'll run through a brick wall for, like, he's the guy. He's the perfect guy to start this program. And his story is special too, because of his background coaching D1 and D2 lacrosse, winning a JUCO national championship, I think 11 Final Fours in JUCO. And then he saw a dream here in St. Augustine. He coached the student club team here for like 8 years, having been on a D1 coaching staff prior at JU and all, you know, all over the place. So he's been in it. So it's new to everybody else, but to Dunk, this is like year 12. And that's where we are because of him.
I loved your story talking about when you first got involved with him, and it wasn't through he reached out to you because he knew your name or you played there, whatever. You guys just met and hit it off, and personality wise, I think that we talked about that, like the human element of getting coaching involved, and I know who you are, and not just you played at wherever D1, so I'm going to bring you into my staff. Like, actually the personalities and stuff like that, especially building a program that goes a long way if the two of you are ever like seem like really aligned. But I mean, there's also always times as an assistant coach where maybe you and your head coach kind of butt heads a little bit. You've talked about it. I bring it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Just, what is it like? Have you ever had disagreements, and what are the certain things? What did you learn? What did he learn from stuff like that? Just what's the dynamic like whenever you kind of have to solve problems and figure out what you're going to do in a given thing? What's that relationship like?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm a part-timer at Flagler Tech, on paper. Kyle, I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yes.
It's I might be the only part-time offensive coordinator in Division II. Maybe not. I'm not sure, but I'm not around for a lot of this stuff during the day. But the conflict comes on the field and the butting of heads. What are we doing in this situation? And I've just been a sponge to what Coach Duncan and Coach King have been doing, and they've been in these crazy spots. They played at UMBC, right? I did not play divisional lacrosse, so I've been learning a lot. But we butt heads. It's a bunch of brothers that coach together. So like, I screamed at Coach King in the middle of a game this week because he was the nearest guy to me, and it was a bad call. Our best player got absolutely clean. He's like, dude, what's going on? I'm like, I'm just hot, man. I'm sorry. I love you, dude. Just everything ends in a hug, and we're on to the next one. And so it's a bunch of like fierce competitors on the sideline, a bunch of fierce competitors that play for us. You can get a little hot from time to time, but it's like over in a second. And it's just been, we kind of talk about one of our seniors actually this year. He talks about everybody loving everybody, and like, we're going to win with love and not with, on other teams, there's some leadership that's like, you come down really hard on the young guys, and you put them through hell before they can see the greener pastures, if you will. And this year we're like, hey, it's all love, baby. And we're just going to keep it right here and keep it nice and level headed. And we're going to keep doing well. And, you're seeing the effects of that.
I actually did the exact same thing last week where I was screaming and I was jumping up and down and everyone thought I was mad, but it was just because we missed an amazing pass. And I went to yell at the attackman and the ref was in the eye line. So the ref thought I was yelling at him and he goes like this. I was like, not you, not you, and he
totally did that.
He actually listened. Like, he was just like, oh, yeah, all right, whatever. Like that's like part of coaching is like, the hardest thing for me going from college to high school was lowering everything. And then now I'm spiking at weird spots in the game where I'll just be like, sure. I feel the heat. I feel it starts right here, back of my neck. Yeah. The heat just rises and then it hits like the top of my head and then I like blow up. And I go for walks. I'm running the box, but I'll go for walks, to calm myself down. And sometimes, dude, if like, especially if you care, and listen, every coach cares. I'm not saying like there are coaches that don't care.
No, absolutely. Every
coach cares, but there's like a level where like you take it to a personal affront sometimes. And that's hard because like, we coach high school, so it's different, but we're also coaching JV. So like me coaching JV is like, I'm the coolest dude in the school. I'm like, hey, guys, let's try passing, like that kind of thing. Right. But it's so interesting, like the energy you put out with coaching and how it changes for different scenarios through this journey. Has that changed for you? And like, is there a moment where you're like, okay, we have to do this as an offense and I have to be able to do this for them?
I mean, I think really what's been interesting with our coaching staff. So I have the easiest job in America. I'm an OC for Brian Duncan, who's like one of the most brilliant X's and O's guys I've ever met. But we talk about it a lot. I mean, we play good cop, bad cop on a regular basis. I have a 3-year-old now, and I've really gone like dad mode. His kids are all out of the house, so he's like refound this energy and this youth, and I'm the one slowing down. And so we do it a lot. And you just try to provide balance and be sure, like for me, it's, you never forget about the kids. Right. And it's different coaching now than it was 20 years ago. And, every player takes stuff differently. And for me, from the first day I meet these guys, whether we're recruiting them or, first day of fall ball, if it's like a defensive prospect that comes in, it's learning that guy, building that relationship, and then learning how to best coach that kid. Do you respond to getting punched in the mouth, verbally in a huddle, or do you respond to like, hey brother, I love you, clear your head, next play, whatever it may be, and kind of going from there. So I don't know if that answers your original question there, but that's the best part about this game. It's like, unlocking the combination to, 50 plus guys every day and building those relationships in practice. Like, one of my rules is every single practice, I say hi to every player on the team. I give them, like, dap them up, give them a 5, whatever, and I say their name. And then before I even say anything, constructive criticism or not, I'll pump their tires a little bit, like, whatever it may be. Hey, new cleats are looking good, bud, or whatever. Oh, there goes my earbud. These things are falling today. Whatever it is, and it's kind of, you hear about that, like, criticism Oreo, a good, a bad, a good. And so I try to lead every day, like, with some positivity, a handshake, something positive, and then that gives me some leeway to get on them if I need to later on in practice. But it's pretty cool, man. We're just a bunch of beach kids down here getting after it.
Yeah, I always look at it like every kid's wearing this big Flavor Flav lock around their chest, and like my job is like, I got to make a key to open that, and sometimes it takes 4 years. Yeah. Sometimes it's the first day.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's the first day, and sometimes it's the end of a season, or it's a specific drill. It's like all these things come together where, like, I believe there's a moment with players at every level where it clicks for them, either where they belong, what they can do, and what their role is, or how much they love the game. There's always a snap where it's like, oh, I have to do that. That's the thing that, like, really excites me, and, like, why I keep coaching, even though this is like a crazy job to do while I'm coaching. It's not very sane. But yeah, I love that part of it, right? Like, that's the thing I missed when I wasn't coaching and I was just doing this full time. I was just like, there's something something doesn't feel right. Yeah. And it was coaching. And I got very lucky with the program I selected. So
going about that to when it clicks, like, and we've talked about coaching at the JV high school level, and just the little small things. Like, I teach my kid, like, hey, you're stepping with your wrong foot here. When you're moving, you're planning, you're shifting is coming, your power's not coming in your shot this way. And we talk about when you taught that kid where his power coming from on his pass, and like those little moments. We get a lot of them at lower levels, but what are some of the rewarding at the higher level when these kids are already said you're coaching Mr. Florida's this guy or the studs? Like, where do those rewarding moments come from when you're getting guys that are not finished products, but they're high level, so they're not learning which foot to step with when they shoot, like how me and Kyle are. Just where do those moments come at a higher level program?
That's funny you said a higher level program. We're still like trying to pinch ourselves here. Like, I don't know, we have a guy who's like on extra man, and his shooting percentage, like, in the dumps. And against Lander in our PBC championship last weekend, like, he found the back of the net. He changed one little mechanic, he hit it, scored the goal, and then immediately looked over to me on the sideline because we had talked about it. It's like, maybe it's positioning, maybe it's your hands, maybe it's your hips, whatever. And it, like, locked eyes on the field in that moment, both, sets of hands up in the air celebrating. And it was just like me and him in that moment were the only two people on that field. And that right there, you see a guy who's struggling so hard, a senior in college. He's got all this stuff going on. Where am I going to get a job in a couple of months? I got to move out of my apartment before graduation because my lease is up, and I'm shooting like terribly. And it's a championship game. And in that moment, it's like, there's nothing else going on. And, that's most recently one of those special moments that you have with a guy. It's really cool when a guy busts out of a slump, or, you lean on a young man late in an important game and they come through for you. And it's like, that clicks everything for them. It's like, okay, now I know how to play on this level. There's all sorts of really cool little moments always, practice, game, whatever it may be. And that's why every June I say, I'm not sure if I'm going to do this anymore. I spend about 2 days. Yeah. I don't know, man. I can make way more money if I'm not coaching at night and not traveling on weekends. And I can spend more time with my daughter and all this stuff. And then I'm like, no, I can't give it up. And, my daughter, she's at every game. She's in our huddles after games. She comes out to practice. Bringing her out to practice has always been great because it's like, hey, don't hit the kid. When you're passing, and it's like, I swear our sticks got better once I had a toddler that could walk around.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever told this story before, but speaking of, you can do different things to make money. When I was coaching in college, when I was just an assistant, I think I was at Emerson. I went to my friend's house. He had a little party, and I walked in, and I see everyone kind of turn and look when I walk in. I'm like, that's weird. Hey, where's the beer? What's going on? And I walk in, and they're like, hey, man, we want to talk to you about something. I'm like, what? Is this an intervention? You know, and it was. They were like, Kyle, what are you doing? You are making like 12 grand a year coaching at a school in Boston. How do you live? What are you doing? I was like, I don't know. I'm making it work. And they're like, dude, you went to the same school we all went to. They're all like doctors and lawyers at this point.
Sure.
And I'm like, yeah, man. You know, they're like buying houses, they're having kids. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not stopping. And they kind of were like, why? And I was like, because this is what I'm here. I was literally said this to them. This is so stupid. I was like, I was put here to do this. Like
we've all said that same term though. We were all put here to do this.
I was put here to do this, and they all were like, Kyle, you played at Clark University. And I was like, yeah. They're like, you lost like 50 games in college. And I was like, yes, I did. Yes. You're losing now at the school. Yes, I am. Yes. Yes. You look terrible. Yes, I do. Yes. Yes, I do. You know, like I'm like reaffirming all their concerns, and I'm just like, but like, guys, like I appreciate this, but like, I'm not stopping.
Yeah.
Like, and I looked at all of them in the eye. It's like 6 of them. It's like, I'm not stopping. Who wants to talk about the fantasy football draft? Are we ready? Right. Can we get ready to do who's going to be commissioner? And they're just like, it's not going to work. You know, they all kind of gave up at the same time. And I was like, that's it. Like to do what you do, what I did, what I do now for high school, you have to have a level of sacrifice that you're comfortable with, and you're getting there. Yeah. Right. Like
it exists.
Working here probably helps a little bit, right? Like where you have several jobs. You don't just have one job, right? Like what is your other job? You alluded to it.
My other job. So let me go backward, but I started, you know, when I knew I wanted to coach. I don't have that pedigree, that like, you know, D1 pedigree, and there were no GA opportunities for a guy like me coming out of an MCLA school back then. So I got into the sales gig. I was like, oh yeah, I'll be a team sales rep. That's got to be easy.
Oh,
you know,
no,
just talk to coaches.
That's the trap, brother. That's the trap. Dude, they sell you that trap. It's the worst.
You told the story.
I told you the story. That's the worst trap ever.
You're not wrong. And 20 years later, your dude is still in sales, but now I'm away from the apparel stuff now. I actually got over into like private label apparel for a long time and did like some really cool stuff. And made really good money doing that. And then, you know, thanks COVID for shutting that down, because no one needs a t-shirt when the world's coming to an end. But yeah, so now I'm actually a commercial sales director for it sounds funny. It's a golf cart dealership down here in St. Augustine Beach. I sell the utility equipment that colleges and universities and local, you know, municipalities, local government use, state parks and all that stuff, warehouses, whatever. So I do B2B sales for stuff that helps people move other stuff around. You know, it's pretty cool. And my office is like 80 yards from the Atlantic Ocean. Get to drive golf carts around. Came up here and won. I'm at the local coffee shop right now, and it's 82 degrees out. So it's good. And fortunately, we practice 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night, most nights over at Flagler. And it's about 8 minutes from my office. So usually run home, have lunch, or excuse me, have dinner with the family there, and then head over to the practice field, get home at 9:30, and then get ready to do it another day.
We've kind of talked about that. D2 is kind of like the like forgotten division in college lacrosse. Like you hear about everybody going D1, you hear about everybody going D2. I have a friend who's a strength coach at a FCS football school, and they said like we get a kid for a year and a half, and then he's off to a bigger school. Do you see that happening a lot in D2 lacrosse, where they'll kind of come and either go to a middle D1 or a higher D3, where D2 is just kind of this feeding program for like the higher and lower divisions, because some kids will end up at a union, a NESCAC school like that. Does that ever happen, at least in your experience?
Not too much. I mean, specifically here at Flagler, we'll get some D1 guys who weren't happy. They were chasing that D1 or bust mentality, and then it sucked for them. It wasn't the right school, the right place, the right, their day to day wasn't what they wanted. So they come here because of where we are and what we're doing. So we see a lot of that, but people usually don't leave Flagler, which is pretty cool. We had to lean on the portal to really kind of jumpstart this program a little bit, not that much. I mean, really not that much. A couple of guys the first year, leaned on the JUCO roots. So, we're getting a lot of guys coming in, but, I talked to a lot of seniors, especially guys who played 1 year D1 and then came to Flagler, and they're like, man, I wish I got that extra year here because this was the absolute best. Not just at Flagler, but back in the day, I was a young volunteer assistant at Rollins College in Orlando, and kind of the same thing. Guys who went, they were the 50th guy on the roster at a Division I school, and then they get to Winter Park, Florida, and they're like, holy smokes, what was I doing?
Yeah, no, I have relatives that live in Florida, and the kids in Florida that grow up, they don't want to leave Florida. They go to the schools in Florida. So if you're very good at lacrosse, the top 10% guys get picked.
Yep.
But like in most states, the next 20% is where, that's where the travel is.
Yep.
They don't leave. They kind of stay.
No. Well, usually these kids grow up being either a Gator or Seminole fan because mom and dad went to UF or FSU. And then that's why the MCLA was so strong for so long down here in Florida. It's like when I came out, I'm 40. When I came out of high school in Orlando, Limestone was the closest college that had NCAA lacrosse. So it's like, you got to get out of town if you're going to go play on that next level. Now it's like, you got half the Sunshine State conferences within 90 minutes, 2 hours of Orlando. It's a really cool setup, and it's been really cool to see. But yeah, a lot of the Florida guys, they stay local, or you can be from South Florida like Trace McDonald, and 4.5 hours away you're at Flagler here in St. Augustine. So like you're getting far enough away from mom and dad, but still getting that college experience.
Yeah, still getting the beach.
Yeah,
that's kind of the
sales pitch.
It's kind of the thing.
Right up I-95, baby.
Yeah, it is the best. And the other thing that Florida has that now, specifically in the last couple of years, is the IMCLA thing in December, which is every single college coach ever that breathes air is at this place. It's actually hard for me to get a pass to go to it. Like I have to like talk to people and be like, hey man, can I get that pass? Like we talked a little bit, I have to send like 7 emails, and then I get it and I'm walking around and people are like checking because the parents are kind of following everybody. And I'm just like, hey, can I just get through? I just show them the pass. But that's the biggest recruiting event that there is. And, we've talked about on past podcasts about all these club super teams, right? There are guys that now, like you said, they drive 4 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes to go to this tournament. And they're seeing kids that they would have to fly across the country to get a look at, right? Like that's a huge piece of developing. It might not sound local, but that is a huge piece of developing local talent and local reach for the talent in other places. Yep. And, I wanted to bring this up because I was in Burlington and I saw that you were in Burlington. I follow you on Instagram and I was like, hey, I bet like one of my players would like Flagler. And I was like, he just went to Alchemist. I just went to Alchemist. I'm in Stowe. Let's see what he's doing. And I had to go to the Burlington tournament the next day, but like you were just up there on vacation and I was like, oh, all right, that makes sense. Like this is a great place to go to vacation if you're from Florida. Like it is. Might be a complete flip. And especially even in the summer, it's super nice. But the fact that there is all these talent that you have to pull from all these different places, how involved are you in the recruiting process for guys that you want, guys that you think fit into the program moving forward and to this point?
I hate this question because it discredits me so much, but I do 0.05% of recruiting for Flagler College. Brian Duncan goes on the road for like 8 or 9 weeks every summer, and he just grinds. He knows what he needs to make this thing happen. So he lets me stay home. I'll go to every now and again, I'll go up to Charlotte or I'll go to Orlando or whatever. It's really just to be like a second set of eyes on guys he's already had in the pipeline or had his eyes on the whole time. I have the easiest gig that there is. It's ridiculous. But now, the inbox is filling up a little bit more and a little bit more every day as we've had our continued success. And then, unfortunately with schools closing on some levels and whatnot, like, hey, we want to come there. So we're looking at a lot of film for sure. But Dunk's the one that's on the road all the time, which is, as a D2 assistant and, Kyle, even D3, right? Like,
yeah,
normally it's me, a guy like me on the road. But like I said, Dunk, he goes back to Baltimore for the summer. He goes and sees his family, hangs out. I go up to Stowe or Burlington or whatever. My better half's from Vermont. She's from right outside of Montpelier. So that's our like little getaway. We go spend 10 days up there. Every now and again, you try and check out what you can or speak with some coaches up there. But yeah, it's, we're kind of in a pretty cool little magnetic area here. And the IMLCA thing's great because then you get kids who aren't from the South who are coming down to play in it. And then while they're here, they're going on visits or they're doing, they're stopping by a school to check it out. We say all you have to do is like get them inside the city limits of St. Augustine, and then odds are pretty good they're going to keep you on your list.
So I say go top shelf, upper 90s, right under the crossbar. Any questions?
Professor, the NCAA Lacrosse Championships are coming to Boston. Are we ready?
You prepared to get loud, face paint up, bring boom boom to Beantown? Oh, you're ready. The NCAA D1, D2, and D3 men's and D1 women's lacrosse championships, May 23rd through the 26th in Boston. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/tickets.
Hi, I'm Jamie Marcoux, AVP for Athletics at LaSalle University. We're proud to offer 15 NCAA Division III varsity sports teams. And last year, all of our varsity teams advanced to the conference playoffs. Our student athletes excel both on the field and in the classroom. LaSalle offers over 60 majors and minors and is located just 8 miles from Boston. With one of the most affordable private educations and housing ranked #1 in Massachusetts by Niche, we're committed to providing an exceptional college experience. Visit lasalle.edu to learn more.
We talked a little bit before this about tactics and how Kyle hates on-ball picks, and we didn't really talk tactics a lot, but I loved it. It was at the end of the podcast, and I wanted to talk about it for 30 more minutes, but we couldn't have it. But and especially because lacrosse, like most sports, but especially lacrosse, a very dogmatic sport. People believe what they believe and their tactics, their terms, whatever. What are some of the things that you've installed that, like, we do this, we don't do this, or something, beliefs that you've had either from watching other teams play or watching your teams play? Just kind of the things that the do's and don'ts of your offenses, or maybe not offense, just general lacrosse beliefs that you're willing to share, I should say.
Yeah, this has been probably the coolest part of coaching with Brian has been, his era and his geographical, where he came from, right, versus mine and my influences. I very much, from like 8th grade on, I used to live in DC. I was a Baltimore Thunder, Washington Power fan. I moved to Denver and that team moved out, became the Mammoth. And so like box lacrosse to me was always like the pinnacle of, this is like, it's John Grant Jr. said, it's like playing lacrosse in a washing machine. And which is true, but like tactically, you're just getting the crap kicked out of you all game. Like, how do you find success doing so? And that's really what I latched onto from a young age. And then to meet Dunk, who's all about flow and spacing and timing and all of this, we've really meshed that together well. And so I guess in terms of like technique or tactics or theory or whatever, the biggest thing that's helped us find success was helping our players learn what spacing is and learning what an actual pick is, and that there's not just one type of pick. You don't run right up to the guy and stand there and then kind of lean into it. Like, set your pick in space, let the ball come to you, and then, pick, slip, re-pick, swing pick, fake pick, all this stuff. Chris Bates, I reached out to him when he was at Princeton. He was running the called it his ocean offense. And it was an open 2-2 with 2 pipe guys and 4 guys playing 4-on-4 above GLE. And I just reached out to him. I was like, Coach, can you tell me what you're doing here? Because it's really cool. And he sent me the Princeton playbook, probably dumbed down for the public. And I latched onto it. And I used that terminology for like 9 years. Like however Batesy had it, I had it. And so we did a lot of that stuff. And, you know, the pick game, also being a very slow attackman myself, love the pick game. Absolutely love it. You know, because I'm not going to burn by anybody. Never have, never will. Probably never scored a goal outside of 10 yards from the goal. How am I going to get open and get my hands free? And it's, you know, either rolling off a pick or my buddy setting one for me.
Yeah. Poker by crook, man. That's how you got to do it.
Yeah, man.
Exactly.
Yeah. We, it's funny. You just said all the pick terms that I said, but in different words. Because we were talking about it with the coach. And I was like, oh, well, I hinge or roll or slip. Or
you don't see slips a lot, and when I do, I'm like, that was all. I love when people slip, especially on man up. When people slip a man up screen,
yeah.
I love it so much. You never see it.
Oh, we
slips are the best.
Slips are great
because if you can just like create the confusion, right? Like you got to be deceptive, and if it looks like one thing but it ends up being another, I love that. So you know, slips a great one for sure.
Yeah, I'm literally so paranoid that I won't explain my offense. But even in high school, I don't care. I'm not telling you. But my whole thing is spacing, and what you do with the spacing is the most important thing. And you know, I'm a big, you know, this is like a dying idea. I feel I'm a big swing through X guy, and no one listens now. Like I'll have conversations with much higher level people, and they're just like, yeah, we kind of just do other stuff now. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like I don't like you said 2-2-2. I still have flashback nightmares from Springfield running a 2-2-2 and smashing my college team that I can't ever run a 2-2-2. Like I look at it, I'm just like, oh no, straight PTSD. It's horrible. Yep. We ran it at St. A's, and I was just like, I don't want to coach this. Can we do a different? He's like, Kyle, this is the offense. I was like, I don't like to clear out. Like I was like whining about it because people that have what you were getting at, people have their preferences and tendencies regardless of geographical location. Of like, I think this works. I think that works. I don't like this. I don't like that. I don't like this. And it's funny because like what I said when we were talking about picks is like, we don't set picks on ball because my guys aren't ready to deal with it.
Execute it correctly.
Like we're way better at setting ghost picks on the other side of the field and getting space. And they don't know that I'm just like, hey, I'm sending you on a wild goose chase. Go pick over here. I'm really just creating space for this guy. It's okay. Yeah. You don't need to know that. Just go this way.
They know now.
They don't listen. Listen, my kids have to listen to me during the season. There's no way they're extra listening.
I bet I'm
you know what I'm saying?
The same way.
I bet your kids are the exact same way. But I bet yours will listen. I bet they're pumped.
Kyle, between just me and you here, we do a clearing scrimmage in practice every now and again, and we reward the offense when they get the ball through X. So like it's worth a point. So when you talk about people not getting the ball through X, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard. Couldn't be Flagler.
Yeah, no, it's for sure. And you know, I can't get over how the landscape of D2 has now drastically shifted because of Limestone. But before that, like I was saying, like I did a feature on Maryville this year. You know, I tracked like a goalie from Georgia that plays at Wingate. You know what I mean? Like the D2 is where people think that like hotbeds are going to be found for NESCAC or Ivy League. No, they're being created and funding entire teams with players in D2. And I actually think the D2, this has been this season, and you guys are a big part of this, the most exciting D2 season I can recall. And a lot of it is you know, you got Adelphi. Everyone's like, oh, Adelphi's unbeatable. St. A's, new head coach. We don't know what he's got. Smashes him. I'm like, oh, awesome.
That was crazy.
Right? They like, and then you have GLVC playoffs, which is a league no one follows except for me because I have to do it for my ranks. And you have double upsets. You have Rockhurst winning. You have Indy winning, who's had a down year, and then you're just like, what is going to happen to these conference players? Like, this tournament could be the best tournament ever in Division II. And that's also because it's the biggest and there's AQs and all these different things. But I love talking about the excitement of that because it is, for Owen, like you have, what do you send kids to Bentley?
I have.
Yes.
I have a kid there right now.
You have a kid there right now, right? Like that's kind of up here in New England. That's the reach is NE10.
NE10, yeah.
And by the way, NE10 is a phenomenal conference, and there's a good reason that happens. But now the rest of the country is discovering the benefits of Division II, the campuses, the locations, the differences we're a glut of colleges up here. There's too many. I'll say it. There's too many. You can go elsewhere in the rest of the country and have a totally different experience and have it be super helpful for everybody and awesome for the players, the coaches, and everyone. And now with the new D2 tournament pool, which hopefully they keep, I think they will, you can go compete for a conference title that gets you an AQ that we now, as New England people with all of our schools, take for granted. Yeah. Like we do. We're just like, oh yeah, you won the LEC. Congratulations, you get to play Tufts. Like that's kind of our snobbery, right? Like, but if you reverse that and you look at the rest of the country, all these very awesome and cool things are happening in different parts of the country with lacrosse. And Florida's one of them. Your conference, the Peach Belt, is one of them. Sunshine State, SAC, like all these GLVC, all these conferences are building programs seemingly out of nothing, but it's not nothing. It's people like you. It's the IMLCA going to Florida and expanding that. It's getting coaches that actually want to coach at that level and doing great things. So, it's funny. I think I told Owen I was going to have you on, and he's like, Who's that? I was like, you'll see. It's interesting. Like I love spotlighting that part of the game, and it is like a full countrywide reach of the game. And I think it's so cool that you guys are having this amazing season. I really do not want to jinx you. I'm not even going to bring it up, the game that you're about to play. But best of luck, man. It's been so great having you on. And really appreciate your time and coming out. And, thanks for being on the podcast, man.
No, thanks for reaching out to me. And like you were just saying, when you reached out to me, I was like, you sure? But this has been awesome. It's really cool. Being living in the house with a Vermonter, try to keep my tabs on New England as much as possible. And it's fun to watch. And especially those Vermont State playoffs are always pretty cool. But thank you guys. It's been a really cool ride. And wishing you guys continued success.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
And we want to thank you again for listening to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast. For Owen Hart, I'm Kyle Devitt. See you next time.